One of the most annoying feelings in boxing is to be on the wrong end of a taller opponent's jab. Especially as a beginner, it can make you feel pretty powerless, as you have no idea how to get past the jab and get into range to land your own shots. But the best fighters always use their own body type to their advantage. When we think of shorter fighters who have been successful, we think of a Mike Tyson or a Joe Frazier who stay low, cut off the ring, close the distance and work on the inside. So in this video I'll be breaking down the key techniques you need in order to be successful as the shorter fighter. So the first key step is to close the distance behind the jab. We can do this behind a single jab, a double jab or even a triple jab, or as I'm showing here, a 1-2-1 or a 1-1-2 combination. Teddy Atlas, who of course worked with Mike Tyson, has broken this down in his own video. He talks about slipping low to the outside following the jab. He then recommends you throw your punches by rotating your shoulders, because that doesn't leave any gaps open in your own guard. From this point, a shorter fighter can let his own powerful shots go, can avoid punches by weaving to the other side. From this position, Tyson will be able to throw his lethal body shots and uppercut combination. It's important for the shorter fighter to keep moving and always keep the head on the side, so you're less vulnerable from this position. You can also avoid punches by ducking low before popping back up. A different but equally effective example of a shorter fighter being successful is Alexander Usyk in his effort against Anthony Joshua. Particularly in the first fight, Usyk would use his own lead hand to draw a shot from Anthony Joshua before slipping to either side to throw a counter. These images from the Mixed Martial Artist YouTube channel show how effective Usyk is in moving his head off the centre line. Usyk constantly slips from side to side and change levels. This is what made him so effective against Anthony Joshua. As you can see, Usyk paused with a jab to draw a shot from Anthony Joshua before slipping and countering. Usyk also employs a lot of feints, particularly with his jab, to draw shots from opponents to allow him to counter. He does this on top of constant footwork, moving in and out of range, making him very tough to hit. Footwork is so important for the shorter fighter because you don't want to just lunge into range because that will make you off balance. In this video from the Fight Tips YouTube channel, they show how to use footwork to get into range. I recommend stepping off angle in order to make your opponent react. From this position you can step all the way back across to achieve a dominant position, or step directly into range to let big shots go. The most famous fighter to use this type of footwork was obviously Mike Tyson. He'd often end up in a southpaw position in a staggered stance in order to let his big body shots and uppercuts go. Tyson could turn his opponents around by slipping so extremely to either side, leaving them in a completely vulnerable position, and allowing him to throw his trademark left hook. Tyson could generate so much power because he shifted all of his weight to one side in a staggered stance before firing back up with big hooks. A very different but equally effective tactic is bringing your opponent to you. Floyd Mayweather was a genius at this. He often leaned slightly into range to draw a shot from his opponent before leaning back and then firing straight back in with a shot of his own. Here's him doing the exact same thing in his fight with Marquez. And it's also important to remember a shorter fighter never wants to be a stationary target in front of a bigger opponent. Here's another example from Alexander Usyk, who managed to pivot all the way around his opponent Gassiev without him even moving. So in order to summarise, the three key principles are the jab, head movement, as well as footwork. At this point you may be thinking, well, isn't this the same for every fighter, no matter how short you are? And this is definitely the case, but it's just that a shorter fighter needs to be particularly strong in these areas, as well as being aware of slightly different techniques that a bigger fighter might not use. And whilst it's all well and good knowing these techniques, you also need to practice them in the gym, but also in your own time. But here are some ideas of how to practice them. It can be helpful to start with a slowed down version of shadow boxing, just practicing the techniques that we've been over. From this point you can try them on the heavy bag and then progress into sparring. As your technique gets better, you can start to pick up the pace to a more realistic fighting speed, as well as playing around with different combinations that you might use. It's also important to start light when you're sparring and think of it more as a moving target than a natural opponent. There's many creative ways to practice things such as head movement. Here I just got my brother to throw a tennis ball on my head so I could practice slipping and then firing back with a counter. Obviously this still needs some improvement. Another great way to do this is with a slip rope. So for this I literally just use my hand wrap and I tie it from one post to another in my garden, then I can practice slipping and throwing hooks and uppercuts. This also helps you develop your own rhythm as a boxer. This is a drill that I saw from an Alexander Usyk training video where he'll get one of his coaches to walk towards him and he'll simply just practice slipping and moving to either side. And I also practice my head movement and my footwork, simulating something like an opponent coming at me. Unfortunately I forgot my brother was left-handed, so I gave him the wrong glove for his lead hand. This example obviously needs some work, but it's not a bad idea for a drill. I then moved on to some footwork drills, moving forwards and backwards and sideways. Footwork drills like this are really good for speed, muscle memory and endurance. I found when I started sparring my legs would feel really heavy really quickly because I didn't have the endurance for footwork yet. But since doing drills like this I feel a lot better and a lot lighter on my feet. And I also keep my hands up as I'm doing this in order to better simulate boxing. Like any drill, you can start to pick up the pace once you feel more comfortable. I also found static holds to be really helpful for conditioning your legs. As a shorter fighter, your knees will normally be bent, so it's important to have strong legs in order to support that. I will talk more about cardio and conditioning in a future video. But for now, I hope you found this video useful and good luck with your own training.